everybody, welcome to Savaging Studios. I'm your host, Ink, and today we are going to be talking about the dark side of exotic rescue in my personal experience. So, for those of you who are familiar with the channel, you know that I ran an exotic animal rescue for a few years, and it was the most fulfilling experience of my life. It was something I loved doing. I immensely enjoyed being able to take care of these awesome, cool creatures and making sure that they went to good homes. And it was just an all-around awesome thing that were I able to afford to continue doing it, I would have never stopped. However, all good things have their setbacks. So today I'm going to talk about some of the crazy, weird, or not so great things about running an exotic animal rescue. The first thing that comes to mind is you end up with a lot of animals that, have issues. A lot of people who drop their animals off didn't take any time to handle them, so you end up with really aggressive animals. And sometimes those animals have, very strong and painful ways to tell you that they're not interested in your attention. Now, my worst bite ever, which this is going to be a funny guess because I've worked with alligators. I've posted videos of one of the alligators that I work with. I've worked with giant snakes. I have one even still to this day. But you may be shocked to know that the worst bite that I ever took wasn't actually from an animal at my rescue, but at another exotics rescue that I worked with closely. One of their animals was actually the one that gave me the worst bite that I've ever gotten. And that was a umbrella cockatoo. And they're so cute and fluffy and adorable, and they talk. So you could basically have a conversation with one of these birds. They're really clear spoken, and they're adorable, and you would never expect. But I was sitting in this other rescue talking with this other rescuer, and her cockatoo was out, and it crawled right over its cage and climbed up my shoulder and bit me in the ear and wouldn't let go, pulled on it, and I ended up, my lobe actually separated, and I had to put a safety pin through it to try and pinch it back together to make it heal. So yeah, I've got a giant scar on my earlobe from an umbrella cockatoo bite, and that was the worst bite. Now, I never took a bite from any of the alligators that I worked with, thank goodness, so I'm definitely not saying that a cockatoo bite is worse than an alligator bite. I'm just saying I've never been bitten by any of the alligators that I worked with. I was bitten by an umbrella cockatoo, though. And for those of you who have been with the channel a long time, one of my first handful of videos was actually the unforgivable thing that my sister did to my bird. And the bird on the thumbnail for that video is also an umbrella cockatoo. But that was one from my rescue. And so bird bites are freaking scary when you're dealing with large parrots, and we did end up with a few of those at the rescue, so that was always a possible risk, I guess, in working with them. Big snake bites don't scare me. They do not hurt that bad, but birds are scary when you're talking about getting bit. Another thing that is really hard about my rescue in particular, I wasn't funded by anybody. I had to work 2 other jobs just to support the rescue that I was doing because vet bills are crazy expensive and food is crazy expensive. And, paying the rent for a building is really expensive. So one thing that was really hard for me that not all exotic rescuers would have to deal with most likely, but I did, was living on 4 hours of sleep a night. Because when you've got 300 animals that you have to take care of, and you're also working 2 other jobs while working the rescue job, it does not leave a lot of time for sleep. So getting 4 hours of sleep a night was really, really rough. let's see. Another thing that is really hard about rescuing on like a very personal, serious note is not every animal that you take in is going to make it. A lot of people who are surrendering their animals are doing it because they know their animal is sick and they can't afford the vet bills. So we did end up with a lot of animals that came to us really, really sick, and you get them to the vet and you get them medicated and you hope for the best, but it doesn't always work out. And that is a really, really hard part of doing rescuing is, you know, you're going to put a ton of time and money and care into these animals, and some of them are just beyond saving, which is really hard every time that it doesn't work out. I remember my worst case of a sick animal was a landlord from a ways away found my page. They called me and they told me that 3 months ago their tenants had moved out and they had left a boa in the basement where it was wet and humid and had sand in the bottom of the enclosure that was all moldy. And I mean, this poor snake was bubbling at the mouth and just in rotted scales, just really, really bad condition. So I went and I picked her up and I brought her to the vet, and we ended up spending $2,000 in vet bills on this poor animal, and she still didn't make it. And I mean, obviously it sucks to lose that much money, but the really sad thing is you spend so much time trying to like do everything that you can to make sure that this animal's going to be okay, and sometimes they're just still not going to make it. So that's a really, really hard part of doing rescuing and stuff. And a really frustrating part of doing rescuing too is you do occasionally get people who will surrender a sick animal to you because they can't afford the vet bills, and then you go and you spend $500 on vet bills to make it better, and then once it's better, they want to adopt it back for like the $30 or $40 rehoming fee. And that can be really, really frustrating because, and I mean, I had adoption applications, you know, I took down people's names, and it wasn't like a store where someone could just walk in and say, I want that one. You know, there was a process to make sure that the home that they were going to had everything that they needed, that the owner was experienced or was willing to learn. And, you know, for me personally, I'm not going to readopt an animal out to the person who surrendered them when they were sick, because, you know, that's not fair to what we're doing. You know, that's not right to just push off the medical bills for an animal on somebody else and then take it back, you know. So that was kind of crappy. But another thing about rescuing that is like less fun is the people who will surrender their animals and then come back like 2 months later after the animal's already been adopted out and has been like, oh, I moved into a place where I can have animals now. I want my animal back. And we have to kind of like pull out the paperwork and be like, did you read the contract that you signed when you adopted this animal? Because this is not how that works. If you give your animal up, we're not a babysitter, you know. And the other exotics rescue that I worked with had similar issues where people would surrender their animals and then come back later and be like, why don't you still have it? Well, because that's not how that works. You know, we're not babysitters that are, you know, just, oh yeah, sure, drop your animal off for free and we're going to spend tons in food and vet bills and whatever to make sure that they're all set, and we're just going to hold on to them until you're ready to, you know, take your animal back. That is most definitely not how it works. And I don't think that exotic rescues get the same kind of like respect or, you know, understanding of the firm rules as like a cat or dog rescue would. And people expect things to be, you know, not what it is. And that can be really frustrating because, you know, as a person who spends so much of their time doing this, you know, there's not usually a whole lot of time left over to deal with arguing with stupid people. And another thing too is the people who get mad about the price or whatever. And if you adopt an animal and it doesn't end up working out, you don't like them, they don't you know, they don't play with your kids like you wanted them to, even though you didn't mention it, because if you mentioned it, we would have told you that they don't do well with kids or whatever. Then they want, you know, a refund or whatever. But all the money that goes into the rescue from adoption fees goes into getting other animals their food and their vet bills and whatever. And it says in the thing that you sign, you know, we don't do refunds, you know. And having people like lose their minds and then try and like trash talk you online because you didn't give them a refund for an animal that they decided they didn't want. Like, you're not dealing with a pet store here. This is not a business that actually makes money. This is a business that doesn't even float itself, and you have to work other jobs in order to support doing this. And people don't seem to get that. You know, when people are tearing down a business that, you know, I was an individual person doing everything that I could to make a better life for the animals that came into my rescue, you know. This wasn't a selfish endeavor. I wasn't getting rich off it. In fact, I was getting poor off it. So to have someone personally attack you, you know, over, oh, I can't get my $30 adoption fee back. Well, dude, it's just frustrating. So, yeah, those are some of the dark side of running a rescue. And for those people who have the education and the means to do it, I would never say, you know, that the bad parts of it overshadow the good parts of it, because like I said, it was one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done in my life. And if I had the money to do it forever, I would do it forever, because it's a great experience, and it would be something that I could do for the rest of my life. So if you have the education and the understanding, you know, definitely if you want to rescue exotics, you have to be educated on the subject. You know, don't take in an animal that you don't know how to take care of. Don't take in an animal that you don't have the means to take care of, and don't start a rescue if you cannot afford to take them to a vet every time that you get a new animal. And you have to make sure that they're safe to be around other animals. You have to have an isolation space. You know, it's a lot. But if you have the education and you have the means, I would definitely say that the dark bits of it are worth the overwhelming positive experience that you get from being able to change lives like that. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you know where to put them. Please check out these awesome artists who made this adorable fan art for the channel. Thank you guys so much. It means so much to me when you guys make stuff in appreciation of the channel. It touches my heart. So definitely go check out these awesome artists and their awesome work. Thank you guys again so much, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.